Hi, morning. It's quieter today. I guess 8 o'clock is not a good time to do my video. A lot of traffic noise. Something's been going on with the Air Force and they've been testing their jets. So I apologize for yesterday's noise. It's 9:30 now, much more quiet time. And I remember to close my windows. So we may hear the occasional jet. It's just part of life hearing. Well, yeah. Today I'd like to talk about one particular challenge that I had in my life and maybe many that I have in my life and many of you have. And maybe many of you have sought relief, medication, or even practicing yoga or meditating in the hopes that it'll make it go away. And I'm talking about depression. Depression is very familiar to me. It's been a long time companion. Still here. And I'd like to share a little bit of my journey, my exploration of learning to cope with my depression. First of all, there's two reasons that I suggest that it doesn't go away. The first reason is a biochemical reaction in the blood. And no matter how enlightened you are, or that you aspire to be, how awakened you've become, there's no denying the biological chemistry of your body. That's reason one. Inherent in our physical form. And the second is heredity. It seems to me by watching that depression can run in families. The propensity, the tendency towards getting depressed can run in families. It certainly does, certainly has in mine. I'd like to help you on my journey with depression. It was a constant fact. And I'd like to add a little aside here because it may be helpful to some of you. It was helpful to me. I've been told that only intelligent people suffer from depression. So, if you're one of those, you're one of my fellow sufferers, congratulations. It's a sign of your intelligence. And I don't think that's very helpful, but it's just, we grasp at straws, don't we? So, my depression was with me as long as I can remember. So much part of me that I thought again that this was the condition of everybody. Everybody felt this. Now, I was never manic. I didn't have the extreme highs and the extreme lows. What I notice over time is it's secular, like so many things. My period of upness, a little above the norm, never to the point of ecstasy, and never to the point of deepest despair on the other side of the cycle. But I noticed that gradual. And slow acting. I didn't see changes from day to day, and sometimes from month to month. But I noticed there's times when, long periods of time when I'm okay. And then there's this part, looks like a smile, this part, the down part of the depression. And remember, without extremes. I was always more or less functional. It was never debilitating. I was never bedridden or hospitalized, or medicated for that matter, for depression. And learn to live with it. Learn to make do. Knowing that when I was at the apex of my okayness, because it never was much better than okay, that surely my apex of not okay was bound to follow. And again, it's fairly slow, or actually very slow process, the whole cycle. In fact, it was so slow that it took me a long time to gauge, and actually I had some help. After the failure of my first marriage, which, like many, I blamed on the other, when I learned to bring the finger from this one to here, and I discovered that probably, more than likely, I was more responsible than she was. That's called maturing. Refusing to be a victim. Taking responsibility. All those above. But after a certain period of time after our divorce, she contacted me. We had a little dialogue, and it's when I first was able to admit that my responsibility in the failure, the marriage failure. She cried and she hugged me. But it took 5 years after we were divorced for me to verbalize to her. And then in the spirit of renewed goodwill, because we did care for each other, that was obvious, we still did care. She suggested to me that I would be a perfect candidate for Prozac. And for those of you that don't know, Prozac is one of the most common treatments for depression. And she would certainly know better than anyone at that time. But my friends had grown to accept it. When I was really in the down part of the cycle, I would withdraw, kind of disappear. Do what I had to do, still go to work, but the extra activities, socialization, fun, I didn't do much. So friends knew that I would have a period of time when they would call it disappear. When I wouldn't answer the phone, I wasn't in contact. I just didn't want to inflict myself on others. And I wanted to contemplate, reflect, review on this phenomenon called depression that I had such a personal experience with. So, I was in my second incarnation of my university career. I had left college because my girlfriend was pregnant. We had a son. I got married. So, after the divorce, after a certain period of time of my maturity, my accepting responsibility for life as I found it, I returned to the university because I did want to complete my studies. So on campus, they had a psychologist, a campus psychologist, that students could make an appointment with and see. And that was great for me because my fund, as you can imagine, my funding, I was working part-time, my money was not, was very small, not much. So the idea that I could see a psychiatrist for free was great. So I signed up. Took a while. The process took a while. So when I got to see, and those of you who don't know, psychologists and psychiatrists are different entities, different professions. Psychology is about therapy, trained in working with people through words. Psychiatrist had the same training with the additional training of his MD time so that he could prescribe drugs. Psychologist wasn't licensed, wasn't able to subscribe drugs. So psychologist was limited in his solutions, which may be a good thing. Anyway, I saw a psychiatrist and he could write me prescriptions for medication if he thought it was important. So I remember sitting with him and he told me, okay, what's up? What's happening? And I said, well, my ex-wife told me that, and I was standing, I just came into the room and I was standing talking to him because he hit me as soon as I opened the door. What's up? Like next, there's somebody waiting behind you, so let's get to it. And I said to him, my ex-wife has informed me that I'm probably a perfect candidate for Prozac. And he said, sit down, I want to talk to you. So we're on the same page, we could relate. Doctor-patient relationship went smooth. We could identify something in what I said had him piqued his interest and he wanted to get to the root of that. And there wasn't much to say. He said, how have you dealt with it all these years? And I said, it took me a long time to figure that it was exceptional, that it wasn't the ordinary condition of life. And then when I told my coping mechanisms, never experiencing the manic highs and never experiencing the manic lows, on the up part of the cycle, I would do my surfing, my water polo, my sports, my socializing, in addition to working part-time and my education. And then when I came to the lower part, again, coping mechanism was separating, spending time alone, more reflection, taking a look, hoping for solutions probably, but always felt that I was the only one qualified to change or attempt to change this condition of depression. And he looked at me and he said, you know, your wife is probably right. After I described as closely as I could what I've been experiencing my whole life, he put a name on it for the first time. He says, this is dysthymia. The type of melancholy or depression that you suffer is dysthymia. And on the scales of things, it's not too bad. It could be a lot worse. And what the clues, what tells me that this is indeed dysthymia is what you're suffering from. It's a long term. the whole cycle could take 2 to 4 years. And when we talked, we kind of saw patterns that mine was basically, a cycle was about 2 years. So it's been 1 year above the line and 1 year below the line. So that was when you put a name on something, it's really helpful. That meant I could go home and do some research and read more. And then he continued, he said, I could write you a prescription I could give you a medication. I could give you Prozac right now. I will tell you that it's a fairly expensive drug. It will cost you about a daily dosage would be about $1 a pill. And basically, there's no end game once you start taking this pill. Of course, you can detox, get off it, but primarily what you're doing is surrendering to medication for the rest of your life. Because this is not curing. It is helping your brain cope with the biochemical reactions in your body, suppressing that part of you that's depression. And suppression is the key. Push it down. And we talked about what I accomplished in both phases of my cycle, my dysthemia, my up and the bottom. We talked what I accomplished in those times. And I was a creative sort. I liked to write. I was doing well in school. I was pretty much of a free thinker, which could mean undisciplined thinker. But I never thought to discipline thinking would be a good thing until I started wrestling with it later in my spiritual inquiry. So we saw that I was productive on both sides of. That was a commonality in my depression, that I was productive. I was functional. I was able to participate in the world as I needed to. I never used my depression as an excuse for getting out of anything, but again, removing myself from most contact at the low ebbs. And you can imagine that there might be some complications in maintaining a relationship when you're not available for a certain period of time, up to a year sometimes you're just not available. So it's hard to sustain. You have to have a really understanding mate, partner, to sustain a relationship. Intimate relationship, much less, a friendship are difficult, but intimate relationships would tend to be short-lived. Wouldn't take long in the bottom cycle that the partner lost interest or had enough, didn't understand. And I didn't have the vocabulary to properly inform them either. So he said, okay, one thing I want to tell you about Prozac or any kind of psychoactive medication, mood control, you sacrifice. You sacrifice creativity. It suppresses the spark. It suppresses the biochemical action, but as a consequence of that is it seems to put the spark of creativity out. He smiled and said, it's more like being numb. So is your pain so great that you want to be numb? Or can you continue living with it as you have? So, anyway, I left the doctor's office without a prescription and never looked back. So as I mentioned, I was over 30 at that time, and I don't know how early that I realized. I just experienced it from an early age. I don't know when I actually realized it, when I could put a name around it, when I saw that it was different than others around me, when I understood that it's a condition, my condition. And I'd already started my meditation process if I was 30, 18 to 20 years earlier. So I knew that meditation wasn't a panacea. It wasn't a miracle solution. So what else was there? I had eliminated the idea of medicinal intervention. And I had wrestled for many years to try to tame my mind. The initial objective was to quiet it or still it. And when I gave up on those pursuits, I settled on taming it. Which taming it means, for me, to recognize that your mind is a fantastic tool, that there's uses that you can put it to that are different than the ones that are counteractive to your spiritual pursuit. You can put it to work. It doesn't have to stay on the egoic sense. The mind doesn't have to immediately reflect the ego. It's not interchangeable. They're two different entities, two different elements, the mind and the ego. So you can start using your mind. So you can start using your mind to do a new kind of work, a different kind of work, a more directed work. And for me, as I mentioned before, there was a recognition that my mind, no matter what a fine tool it was not any kind of reflection of reality. I wasn't going to find what's real in here. Yeah, I got that part. But at the same time, I wasn't going to be able to quiet it, still it, stop it. Believe me, it's 30 years of trying. And I'm a slow learner. So after 30 years I said, well, maybe there's another way to deal with it. And that's when I came up with the idea of taming. Taming means to have some element of control. And I did attain limited amounts of control. I could tell myself that was the ego speaking, or the reality that I was experiencing in my head is not real, because I'd already started tasting what's real. So I knew the difference. I didn't exactly know what's real, but I knew what's not real. And the mind, my thinking, my brain was in the latter category, the not real. So it wasn't until I reached the point where I learned to laugh at myself. This was key. This was a key epiphany, a key realization. How funny my feeble efforts, both the ego and the separate mind, how feeble those efforts were to take me anywhere where I wanted to go. So laughter. And that's why I said I need to send with a smile to remind me to smile, because this is my natural demeanor. This is how I look most of the time, until I remember to smile, or something gives me pause to smile. So this idea of laughing, self-deprecation, laughing at myself, and I've taken myself so seriously to the point of being a glum person. So everything is gotta strive, gotta push, gotta go. And my Zen training in the dojo in Japan only reinforced this. The samurai part of me came out. The samurai part of me was nurtured. So, this laughter, this inner-directed laughter, sometimes I would just find myself burst out laughing, and the joke was, I didn't share the joke because I was the joke, and people would look at me and just smile, because a little burst of laughter either makes people uncomfortable or makes them laugh too. But certainly it's not really an offensive. It didn't hurt anybody's feelings. It wasn't about the other. Inner-directed sense of mirth. And trust me, I was right. I found myself full of contradictions, full of laughable thoughts, laughable efforts. So I think that, and as I talk about laughter, I feel my shoulders just relax. My whole body just relaxes. So this was on my path to dealing with the mind. Perhaps that's better than stilling, quieting, taming. I was down to step 4, dealing. And dealing implies acceptance of what's so. And what's so, to change that is really not within my arsenal of tricks. There was no special effort, no special technique that I discovered after serious inquiry that would lend itself to defeating, putting depression to rest, not being in my cycle anymore, not experiencing, not living this way any longer. So, what changed over the years? I mentioned a 30-year period of non-abiding, the process of non-abiding awakening, a 2-day experience of awakening. So we're talking about 4 or 5 years ago. What has changed? And my short answer is not much. Not much. But my longer answer would include that through the process of laughing at myself was a letting go. So that I would still notice the phenomena, my biochemical journey through, secular journey through depression. I would notice it, just like I couldn't help but notice what my mind was up to. I would notice that. But not give them a life of their own. Not give them substance. learning to say that it's part of my illusion is for entertainment. Even my mind, I'd relegated it to entertainment purposes, except in the rare case when I knew that my mind, I could put it to work doing something, accomplishing some task that needed to be accomplished. And I would go do it and come running to me like a dog. And I say, good boy, good boy. And very helpful, very useful, day-to-day coping strategies. The necessities of life the brain can handle if you task it. And believe me, at least mine, seem quite happy to be assigned a task, and it excelled at these tasks. When it came back to me, I would review it, contemplate, and reward, say, good boy, good boy. Yeah, this is useful. So here we were, laughing, which led to relegating depression and the mind to the category of entertainment. Not much more. And entertainment, trust me, entertainment has its place in our lives. Entertainment is necessary. So it becomes part of that. And by coming to this solution, this compromise, it freed me from taking things personally. What could be more personal than depression? What could be more personal than your own mind and the thoughts therein? So, from laughing at it to not taking it personal, realizing that it wasn't contributing, nor would it ever contribute to my search, to what I wanted out of my life. So now, to bring you full circle, my second wife, my beautiful, intelligent second wife, will quickly read me, and she says, oh, you're depressed. And sometimes I go, oh, actually I had gotten to the point where I didn't notice it. Did not mean that I didn't experience it. I did not notice. It took someone from the outside to watch me. So, there you have it. This is my own personal battle with depression. My record of learning how to cope with it. And I'm hoping that there's something for value, that you can take away something. Those of you that share this with me, take away something.